the first song, you thinking like, is this gonna be like a atmospheric, spacey sounding album? But no, it isn't. But that doesn't hinder my enjoyment of the album.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Welcome back to Sound Lab Studios. This is the second episode in our David Bowie series. Today we are going to be covering... Well, this album has a lot of different titles. I feel like this album has a lot of different titles, and the next one has a lot of different album covers. The name of this album is David Bowie. And you may be thinking, wasn't that the name of the last album? And that's why it got retitled to Space Oddity, because people were confused. But if that wasn't confusing enough, it's also called Man of Music, Man of Words. So, yep, there it is, written right there. Man of Music, Man of Words. Yeah, Bryer CD copy is interesting because it has both of the covers. There's the cover. The original cover is just his face, and then the reissue cover is the Ziggy Stardust looking one that I have here. The original ones are really hard to find, so that's why I don't have these aren't too difficult to find. These RCA ones, we'll probably talk about how Bowie switched over to Mercury Records when we get to the background information. But anyway, this is David Bowie's second album called David Bowie, maybe even David Bowie 2. But for the sake of clarity, since we already reviewed David Bowie, I'm going to call it Space Oddity in this video. How you guys doing today?
Oh, doing great. Get to review another great David Bowie album.
That's good. Hopefully we'll all enjoy this one a lot more than the first one. This I will say this one definitely felt a lot more like a David Bowie album. Bryer is our resident historian here, so do you have any background information?
Yeah, that one. So of course, yes, I do. So there's a 2-year gap between the debut and this album. As we know, the debut did not sell at all, really was pretty much ignored. And so because of that, yeah, David was kind of disheartened for a time being, but he was always persistent. And so during that time, what was interesting is that he actually started in this like first professional, like kind of like a promotional video for one of his tracks, Love You Till Tuesday. You probably saw that already, but it's something.
Love You Till Tuesday.
Yeah. Which was kind of interesting. But really, eventually he kind of decided to break away from the first label he was on and signed with Philips Records. And just during that time he was still writing, and this album's kind of interesting because this is where this is probably the first of many times where he's going to be shifting genres. Where on the first album, it definitely has that kind of quirky music hall, nursery rhyme sort of thing. But now he's starting to write a bit more of a more folk sort of side, more folk rock, and even a little bit of psychedelic rock. And this song that definitely kind of catapult that was, of course, the song Space Oddity. And of course, we'll talk more about the song itself, but basically that song, he saw Space Odyssey, the Stanley Kubrick film, and that kind of got him thinking, of course, by 60s, the moon landing and stuff like that, all around space, a lot of sci-fi at that point. And yeah, what's funny was that this album also has 2 producers. You have one producer who produced Space Oddity, and that, of course, was Gus. Don't know if I'm going to say his name right, but Gus Dudgeon. Don't know, but of course he would go on to have a great career because he would go on to be Elton John's producer in the 70s. So he produced Space Odyssey, but the rest of the album is where we have the first appearance of what, of course, one of David's biggest collaborators was Tony Visconti. So we're going to see him appear a lot on these albums, but yeah, his production is definitely what gave David that sort of sound that he's best known for. And overall, there wasn't too much going on during the recording. It was kind of pretty straightforward. Again, Space Odyssey was released, became a big hit, and so decided to just record the rest of the album. It came out in November of 1969, and still not quite a commercial bang. It was mainly banking off Space Oddity, and the whole album got kind of mixed reviews, but it's definitely, to most people, this is kind of the real start to David Bowie. The first album was one thing, but now here we're starting to hear more of those trademarks that we associate with David Bowie, especially in the 70s. And it's definitely very, very nice. To give my thoughts on the album real quick, it's definitely a big step up from the debut. Like, it's a huge step forward in terms of production and the overall sound. But overall, again, not much else to say. It was a pretty straightforward album. Yeah, there we go.
Let's go ahead and we are going to get started with Space Oddity, aka Major Tom.
Okay. Yeah, Space Oddity is such an iconic song for a good reason. It opens up with that acoustic guitar. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba ba boom, boom, ba boom. This is Major Tom. Bump on the Major Tom. And then you can barely hear David Bowie go 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and then it gets to 1, lift off. It's just all these sound effects. This is it's I'm forgetting the lyrics right now. My brain's farting on me, but it's this is the Major Tom. I'm stepping in the door. It's oh my gosh, this is mind blowing. It's you could feel the space of this song. It really you said Russ does the production. He does a great job of making you feel like you're in space. This is a fun song, and yeah, this is a fun way to open up the album, and I love this song.
This song is amazing. It's starting out with the acoustic guitar there, just strumming those chords, and then the bass comes boom, boom, dum, 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 dum. And then he starts singing low, ground control to Major Tom. And then you kind of get some layered vocals. He sings up higher at the same time. Ground control, Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. And then he starts doing that countdown, and once he gets to 1, it's boom. There's some slide guitar and the strings, and then the drums. This is ground control to Major Tom. You really made the grade. And then while I was doing that, there are real strings, but there is also a mellotron on here. And you guys know how much I love the mellotron. Put to such good use in this song. Especially that dramatic second chord there. Oh, so good. And then you get to the kind of the bridge section where the drums do this jazzy breakdown, he goes, here am I floating in a tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue and there's nothing I can do. And then there's a breakdown boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba, and then there's claps. Pretty good guitar solo after that. Lyrically, I want to discuss this song lyrically because this is a very interesting song lyrically. It can be taken several different ways. At face value, it's about an astronaut who's afraid to go into space, or a little worried about going to space because he doesn't know what's going to happen whenever he leaves the capsule. But he realizes that he needs to step out and see what's out there. But whenever he steps out there, something happens and he gets stuck and is just floating into space. And we don't know what happens to him until Ashes to Ashes, which we'll get to that, and Scary Monsters. But I feel like there's some multiple meanings going on with this song. Yeah, it could be a drug song, maybe, but I tend to think it's more one of two things. Either A, it's about not being afraid to take chances, or B, it's about sometimes when you take chances, you fall flat on your face and you feel isolated. one of the two. Like I get like because Major Tom, it's like now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. I kind of feel like Major Tom is uncertain of what's going to happen to him, but it's like you got to take that first step to see what happens. But at the same time, I also feel like this could be about isolation, because he's alone in space. He's like, planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do. Just like I'm floating through space, and I can't change what's happening. I see the Earth down below me. It's blue. It's sad. I'm up here, like I got a bird's eye view of the planet, and I can't really do anything about it. So the lyrics are kind of sad and depressing as well. But I think that kind of is what makes it a good song, is because it's something that people can relate to. Whether it's about stepping out there and taking a chance, whether it's about feeling alone, or whether it's about even just about an astronaut going into space. Like in 1969, we had the moon landing, so that probably helped this song sell a lot. But any way that you take the lyrics, which honestly, a lot of Bowie's songs you can take several different ways. Any way you take the lyrics, it's an amazing song.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely a defining song, of course, at least for him at this point. I mean, really, the song what also establishes, like, here we have probably his first real defining character. I mean, we're gonna see throughout his career he would make up a lot of characters, and he had characters in the first album,
We're
but
not
none
going
of
to count
them.
Uncle Arthur
I mean, no way he remembers Uncle Arthur.
or the German.
Yeah,
We Are Hungry Men.
or people want to forget that, but
Yeah. Or Mr. Gravedigger.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
people
it's
want
like,
to
I
forget
can
him
just
too.
imagine him performing it live and then like ruffling a feather on his nose so he could sneeze on purpose. Like,
I just imagine
Yeah,
him
that'd
in
be
like
a
a
very
trench coat and a
interesting live. That'd
fedora,
be
smoking a cigarette on
Yeah.
stage, just like, please, Mr. Gravedigger.
I can only picture seeing him live at that period in time. But anyhow, but yeah, of course, Major Tom, as Sky already said, we're gonna be seeing Major Tom a couple times throughout the series. Not too many times, but he definitely one that gets brought up a lot. And lyrically, of course, I mean, Scott pretty much summed it up perfectly. I mean, again, there are many ways you can take it. I mean, for me, I also hear a lot of the isolation and the sadness to it. At least that's, of course, especially towards the end. The whole part where they say, "Tell my wife I love her very much. She knows." I don't know why that always kind of gets the heartstrings almost in a way, almost like Interstellar in that sort of feel. But yeah, lyrically, it's fantastic. Again, many ways you can take it, but musically, it just really, really paints the picture greatly. I mean, you have the slow fade in, you hear that acoustic guitar just strumming in, and yeah, I mean, you mentioned the bass. I mean, the bass underneath is top notch. I love how it feels. And then you have and again David's vocals. Again, this is where I fear this is why I feel he's a bit more confident in his vocal abilities at this point. Again, I like the countdown, like Nick brought up. Again, this is very, very cool. And then again, look, even though I talked about the sadness and the isolation, like when you get to the actual like breakdown, even the chorus, again, it kind of has a more happy, uplifting feel, which you have an interesting juxtaposition between that. And the chorus is very memorable, very catchy, and then of course that breakdown with the hand claps, that always great knee slap there. And also when we mentioned the mellotron, of course that's Rick Wakeman doing the mellotron, and yeah, again, really perfectly creating that vibe. And it does really make sense why this was a big hit. Of course, we mentioned the historical significance at the time, which is why this song got to number 5 in the UK. Sadly, it didn't do that well in the US, surprisingly. You want to guess how high it got?
Probably like number 70 something.
124.
Oh, that was the peak position?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
when it peaked originally. So at this point, I guess Americans weren't quite into David at this point yet. They weren't ready for him.
It's because he was up in the stars. But whenever
Probably.
Ziggy came to Earth.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, it's a classic song and definitely a great way to open the album.
He's a star man.
We're getting
All
Harry
right.
says.
All right. Here's the interesting thing, though. The rest of this album has a completely different vibe than this song.
Yeah.
Track number 2, Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed.
Yeah, it's weird because that's right. Like the first song, you thinking like, is this gonna be like a atmospheric, spacey sounding album? But no, it isn't. But that doesn't hinder my enjoyment of the album. I thought this was. I'm gonna spoil it. This is my favorite song on the album. It starts off kind of like Space Oddity, where it's like you go bum ba da bum ba bum ba bum ba ba bum boom boom boom. Spy, spy, pretty girl. Bum ba bum bum. And then it just completely changes after that. It becomes like a jammin' bluesy type song, which knowing that, I know a specific person in our group won't like it. But I love the jamming. I love the part where he's like, I am unwashed and somewhat slightly dazed. And then when you think the song's over, it comes back, like their jamming still continues, and they're just little talking, but I thought this was one of the best songs in the album. Like I said, it's my favorite song on the album. I've always loved this song. This was a song that I've always really enjoyed when I was getting into David Bowie.
This is so much better than his first album. The vibe on this album is so much better. Like, I will say Space Oddity is my favorite song on this album, spoiler alert, and it is a little, just the first time you listen to this record, it's a little disappointing not having any of the other songs sound kind of like it, but once you get past that, there's a lot of hidden gems on this record. This is one of them. I think it's really good. I like kind of the folky feel to this song. It feels like a slightly psychedelic folk song, and I think that's really cool. Great guitar playing as well. It's a really great song.
Yeah. I like the song quite a bit. Yeah, it has a really nice acoustic intro. I like the feel that it's going for. And yeah, it kind of starts out kind of this very chill, kind of very almost relaxing type of sound. But then once it switches, then you're like, oh, okay, now we're doing this. Because yeah, now we're getting to a more bluesy sound. You have the bass and the drums really kick in at this point, and it's definitely great. And a lot more electric instruments as well, like more electric guitars, which is kind of cool. And at one point, harmonica comes into play. Yeah, this is definitely a very nice follow-up song. I mean, I will agree. I mean, when you first hear the album, like you're hoping everything's like Space Oddity, but I think when you hear the album more, you kind of start to appreciate the other tracks a bit more as well.
Yeah, I've listened to this 3 times now, and it just keeps getting better every time I listen to it.
Yeah, but overall, this was a nice track. I like this one.
I don't know if it's because I only heard this album for the longest time, but this was an album I've always really enjoyed. But I'm glad it's growing on you guys. I was afraid I was be the only one who really liked this album.
Oh no, it's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so we're now getting into our third track, Letter to Hermione.
Oh man, this is another great song. I like the do 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 do. I like that beginning. It's like I don't know why. I don't. It's hard to describe why I like it so much, but I don't know. It's a cool opening, but it's another criminally underrated song. This is. I'm gonna say it. Besides Space Oddity, this album, all the songs on this album are criminally underrated, and I'm not saying the exception of Space Oddity because that song gets its recognition that it deserves. This song is so underrated. It has like a nice kind of nice relaxed feel to it. I'll say it's my least favorite song in the album, but I love it so much. Just goes to show how much I love this album.
The real standout on this song here is the lyrics. I feel like even though he's very young, David Bowie has got a really good grip on writing lyrics at this point. Pretty soon he's gonna be able to write great melodies to match those lyrics. He already has on a lot of the songs on this album, but it's like I feel like he just gets better from here. But listen to some of these lyrics. I got the lyric sheet here so that I can see them. But it's like, the hand that wrote this letter sweeps the pillow clean. Rest your head and read a treasured dream. I care for no one else but you. I tear my soul to cease the pain. I think maybe you feel the same. What can we do? I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to do, so I've been writing this just for you. It's like it's a lovely little song there. Like, and he's just gonna get even better. Like later, he's gonna so many good lyrics. But I'm trying to think of what a really good example of one of his lyrics later on would be. What about The Man Who Sold the World? That's even just on the next album. The Man Who Sold the World. That's a great lyric. Like he's gonna go on to write even more great lyrics as well. But even from a young age here, like he's showing his songwriting abilities, and I feel like he just gets even better from here on.
Yeah, this is definitely another really great deep cut here. I mean, besides Space Oddity, from what I've gathered, besides Space Oddity, it's usually this song that people seem to have fond memories of. I know a lot of people have talked about this song. On top of my head, I know comedian Ricky Gervais has talked very highly of this track, one of his favorite David Bowie deep cuts. And I can definitely see why, because, I don't have much to say on it, honestly, but I still think it's a really great one because it's really, the vibe is the main focus here. And I just love the very chill, not quite, I won't say haunting, but definitely more, it's kind of more interesting. Well, we'll say it for now. But the acoustic guitars sound great. Again, there's some good harmonies a little bit. I guess I'm assuming David's kind of double tracking himself. They sound really good. Maybe a touch of a reverb, but yeah, it's just a very nice vibey track that, yeah, I can definitely see why people seem to go back to it. And it's definitely a highlight for sure. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
All right. Now we are going to get to Cygnet Committee, track number 4.
Yeah, this is a great way to close out side one. It's the longest song on the album. It's like 9 minutes long, but it doesn't feel like it's 9 minutes long. It feels like it kind of goes like that because it's one of those songs where it just keeps you going. Like it's like one of those songs that keeps you engaged the entire time. This is another one of my absolute favorites on the album. This made my top 3. It's another huge standout. I'm like, how does no one talk about this song? This is so good. The lyrics are good. The melodies are good. This is a great way to end off side one. I'm like, wow, this should be remembered more. This is criminally underrated.
This is, I totally agree with that. This is one of the best songs on the album. And I feel like this is the song that sounds the most like the next album, Man Who Sold the World. It's got a little more of a hard rock and edge to it. Not quite as heavy as what he's going to do on the next album, but it definitely has more of an edge than some of the other songs on this album. I feel like this is definitely the big anti-war, pro-peace, pro-love song on this album. Of course, Bowie being a big fan of John Lennon, like I feel like there's definitely some John Lennon influence here on the lyrics to this track. And it's got this grand feel, like this big bombastic kind of feel to it. Like there's a big message to the song. Love the guitar playing on here. I know it's not Mick Ronson yet. He's on the next one. Who's playing guitar on here? Let me see. Keith Christmas, that's his name. Keith Christmas, Mick Wayne, and Tim Renwick are they're the guitar players. This is Tony Visconti on the bass. Okay, so Tony Visconti, this is the first time that he's playing bass on a David Bowie album. And I know it's him on the next one because his bass is all over that album. But he's doing really good on the bass as well. This is one of my favorite tracks on this album.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, it literally starts out with a bass. So that's cool already off the bat. Yeah, so like we established, this is the longest song, like over 9.5 minutes, basically. And it's definitely a very interesting, it kind of jams out for a lot of it, which is kind of interesting because you don't really associate David as jamming so much. But it's definitely interesting listen here. Again, great use of the acoustic guitars. I do enjoy when the electric guitars come in. Again, really giving it a more edge, rougher edge, which I really enjoy. Once again, the overall vibe they're going for is really great, especially when the drums kick in at some point, but then they kind of quickly trail off at some point. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, and vocally, also really, really cool because at some point you really hear David like really going to his higher rate register, which is always kind of a nice little treat there. And yeah, it's a very cool track. I'll be honest, it's not in my top 5, but I still think there's some really good things about it that I don't hate it, but I just to me there's just other songs that I would gravitate towards more. But yeah, there's still some good moments here.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, we're gonna start side 2 off with Janine.
Janine. Yeah. You know what's funny? I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I'm picking up a little bit of a French accent from David Bowie.
Yep.
Oh, Janine. I'm like, when I first heard this song, I'm like, David Bowie doing a French accent? That wasn't gonna be in my bingo card of David Bowie moments. I mean, then again, it's the same. We're talking about the same person who's done a lot, so it's like we don't know what to expect from this guy. But
David Bowie bingo. David Bowie does a French accent. David Bowie has somebody speak Japanese on his album.
David Bowie does a German accent.
No, not that one. Not that one.
But it's just like he does everything. I don't know. I don't know if it's because of the acoustic guitar or if it's his French accent. But this is one of my favorite songs on the album. This made my top 5.
I feel like this is kind of David Bowie's Michelle almost. Talking about doing French accents. I really think it's cool the way he says it, Janine, kind of like that. This one is definitely heavy on the acoustic guitar, kind of keeping with that folk sound. I really like this one.
Right, yeah. I agree with Nick. This is definitely a highlight for me. This is one of my favorites on the album. Again, I like once again, another great vibe to this track. And yeah, I just like how he says Janine, especially with the accent he's going for. I think it really rolls off really well. And it definitely makes the chorus very catchy for me. Very interesting percussion. I like the sounds that they're going for with this one, and good bass yet again. Very good bass line there. Again, vocally, I really dig the style he's going for. And there's even a nice guitar solo on this one, which I picked up, which is that nice little touch. But yeah, another really great song here that I like a lot.
All right, the next song is going to be An Occasional Dream.
Man, I wish this could be in my top 5. This is another amazing song on the album. You're gonna hear me say this about a couple more songs of this album that I should have made my top 5, but I just love the feeling of the song. It just has a nice vibe to it. I love it. Just the production on this album is just so good. Like Bowie could like sing the phone book, and with this production, I'll probably be invested in it. Or you could describe the quantum theory on physics, and I'd be like, okay, Bo, yeah, heck yeah. But yeah, I don't have much more to say. It's a nice feel song to it. I like the lyrics, but yeah, this is another incredible song on the album.
So I love the vibe of this song, but here's the thing. Of all the songs on this album, this is kind of the one I keep forgetting about. I really enjoyed it whenever I listened to it today, but I feel like of all the songs on this album, this one's probably my least favorite one. Still really good vibe with the acoustic guitar. It's got kind of like, it's called An Occasional Dream. It's got a dreamy feel to it. But I just don't remember it as well as some of the other songs on the album. Like maybe if I listen to this album a few more times, it'll stick with me more. But all I can really remember right now is just the acoustic guitar feel of it.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. This is another one of the more very acoustic heavy tracks. And I've said it before, I can be hit or miss with it. Like sometimes I'm loving it, other times I could be bored from it. But luckily, in this case, to me, this works out pretty good. Again, the vibe once again kind of shines for me. I like the overall melody of it. Has a nice, pleasant vibe. And it actually sounds a bit uplifting too. That's something I really like. Again, I don't have much else to say, but I think there's some nice moments here. I did notice there was some flute playing on this as well, which was kind of a nice touch. But yeah, it's a very nice song. It's actually a highlight.
Okay, track number the 7th. That is Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud.
Yeah, I thought this was another really good song on the album. Again, it's like great production. I think David Bowie singing his heart out on it. Again, I feel like this song and Occasional Dream, it's like I don't have much to say about it, but the production on it and the feel of it's so good that I like I don't go back to them per se, but I just enjoy the feel of the songs. And that to me is the ticket of admission, in my opinion.
Musically, this is the closest song to what's on his debut album, I feel like. Because some of this, like, parts of this song really reminded me of, like, When I Dream My Dream from the first album. However, lyrically, so much better. This song is what his debut album should have been. I love all the orchestra on there. That really elevates the song to another level. That, just with the melody of this song, this is one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, I mean the orchestra, like you mentioned, yeah, that was great. I love the sound of it. Um, I like in the beginning part. Yeah, I like the chord progression he did in the beginning. I think that definitely hooks you in pretty nicely. And yeah, I think Nick mentioned it. I think David's vocals really shines on this one. Like he's really giving it his all on this particular track. Um, yeah, I mean, musically it goes through different changes. I love what the music swells up more. That like when that happens, and then there are parts where the rhythm begins to change up. It's one of those songs where I think when I first heard it, I kind of forgot about it. But I think on more listens, it's definitely has risen the ranks, and now it's definitely another one of my favorites on this album. So definitely another good highlight.
All right, track number 8, we get God Knows I'm Good.
Yeah, this is a fun song. It's like a faster paced acoustic song. It's like God knows I'm good. God knows I'm good. God knows I'm good. It's like the only like real pop song we get on the album. Like the rest of even Space Oddity, the big hit, it's like not really a pop song. It's more of like it's like kind of like Tom Sawyer, where it's like it doesn't have that hit song sound to it, but it's just so good. It's a hit song. This could have been a hit song because of how catchy it is. I'm surprised they didn't push this as a single, if I'm being honest. I really enjoy this song. I love how fun it is.
This song is really good, very acoustic heavy on this one as well. This one is very lyrically interesting because it's about the psyche of a shoplifter, which I don't know anybody who's written about that. This is the only song I can think about shoplifting at the moment. Um, what's interesting is that not on my cover. My back cover is David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust, but on the original one, on the back, there's a painting of kind of illustrating all of the different songs on this album, and there is a shoplifter on the back representing this song. Oddly enough, standing next to a clown that looks oddly like the guy on the front of Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. So is that a little bit of foreshadowing there, Bowie? This is a completely wild goose chase, but that title was titled "Width of a Circle," but was mistitled "Depth of a Circle" on the back of the album. So Bowie made a joke off of that and titled the very first song on his next album "Width of a Circle" as a joke, since they mistitled the painting on the back of the first one. But yeah, God Knows I'm Good. Very great song here.
All right, so I'll be honest. Like we're getting to the point of the album where it does lose me a little bit. Again, I won't say like any of the songs here are like don't hate at all. I don't hate or I hate or that I don't like. But this is kind of where it's starting to lose me. I'm starting to lose interest a little bit. This song in particular, again, kind of more that heavy, very heavy folk sound, which this is kind of to me, this is one of the more simpler songs musically. Not really. There wasn't much that made it stand out to my ears. Again, again the vibe's nice. I do still like the vibe to it. But it's a decent track. But for me, this is the one of the songs that kind of stood out for me the least. But again, it's not a bad track. That's all right.
All right, we have now reached the final track on the album. Memory of a Free Festival.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best songs on the album, in my opinion. It's like it starts one way, like I'm forgetting how it sounds like, but it's like another, has that David Bowie 69 feel to it. And then out of nowhere, we kind of get into David Bowie's Hey Jude out of nowhere. Like I don't know, we're just like, I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing Hey Jude now. I mean, technically we're not doing the nah. We're not doing that, but you get what I mean. Like it gets to a certain point where it's like, oh, I guess we're doing this now. And you know what? I actually really like that. It's like it's almost like his tribute to the Beatles almost. And I personally really dug it. It's one of my favorites on the album.
Yeah, it starts out as kind of a more folksy sounding song, but then you get like all this like weird sound effects, and he starts talking and like layering his voice, and it's like, what's going on here? And then it changes into like David Bowie's Hey Jude. It's even the same chord progression, so I feel like that's interesting. When I was listening to this album, like Nick said he thinks this is David Bowie's Hey Jude. I was listening to this and I was like, David Bowie must have been inspired by Hey Jude when he did this song, because this really sounds like that. But unlike the White Album, which really missed out on that opportunity, David Bowie did use Hey Jude to end, well, not Hey Jude, but a song like it to end this album. So, good choice, Bowie. Great way to end the record.
There's no Revolution 10.
No Revolution 10.
Right. So yeah, this is the second longest song. This is about 7 minutes roughly. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely a bizarre one. Again, it goes through many changes. There's a bit of spoken word on here. There's accordion on this. There's organ on this. And yeah, I can definitely see the Hey Jude comparison, especially where the crowd comes in and just singing the main hook. Yeah. To me, there are moments where it almost reminds me of A Day in the Life almost, but especially when it gets to a point where the volume starts really increasing, kind of almost creepily. And then it kind of goes back to kind of finishes out. I don't know. I don't know if I love it. It's definitely a song that I probably need to give more chances to, but I don't hate it. Again, it's a very interesting album closer. It's definitely an interesting choice, and still has a very Bowie flair that only he could do. Again, it's an interesting song. Not one of my favorites personally.
All right, that ends the album. Let's go over our top 5 songs on the album.
Okay, so my number 5 is going to be Space Oddity. My number 4 is going to be Janine. Number 3, Memory of a Free Festival. Number 2, Cygnet Committee. And number 1, Unwashed and Somewhat Slightly Dazed.
All right. Number 5, I got Letter to Hermione. Number 4, I'm going to go with Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud. Number 3, Memory of a Free Festival. Number 2, Cygnet Committee. And number 1, Space Oddity.
All right. It's my number 5, Wild Eyed Boy from Free Cloud. Number 4, An Occasional Dream. Number 3, Janine. Number 2, Letter to Hermione. And number 1, Space Oddity.
All right. And what is the score going to be on this album?
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Nice. It's going to be interesting picking a score for this album. I really like it, but he does definitely have better albums. I'm going to go with an 8.5. I feel like that's a solid score for this album. 8.5 for David Bowie's Space Oddity.
Yeah, it's kind of similar. I'm going to go with a solid 8. Kind of like what Scott was saying. Again, it's a really nice album. Definitely, like I said, a big step up from this is first album. But like what was already said, of course, he's going to get even better as we go. But overall, it's definitely a nice, good redemption from his first album. So overall, very nice.
If you're going to listen through David Bowie's albums, start with this one, maybe.
Yeah, maybe say his real debut when you finished.
Yeah, go back and listen to that as kind of a bonus. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. Really fun talking about this one. I'm very excited to get to talk about the next one. The Man Who Sold the World. I feel like that's the most underrated David Bowie album. A lot of my favorite deep cuts are from that album. So
I agree.
join us next time whenever we talk about The Man Who Sold the World. Until then, remember that music is art. Art is expression. Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom?